please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
A very good morning. Welcome to Power Breakfast. We are in the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Nigel D'Souza, and with me is Ekta Batra. Hey, Ekta, good morning. Well, we've had a good run, but this morning, global markets looking like a little shaky early this morning.
Well, morning, Nigel. We've had a good run, so let's see. Maybe we'll just consolidate or move towards that 2 or 100-day moving average. But let's see. As of now, we have a lot of cues to reckon with news coming in from Axis Bank. We're going to keep monitoring that particular speech, and we're going to keep telling you any sort of updates with regards to the trade relations between the US and China. So we'll cut back and we'll keep getting you flashes on real time in terms of what President Xi Jinping is actually saying in that particular speech. But moving on to a key event to watch, Mark Zuckerberg is scheduled to appear before a joint hearing of the Senate Judiciary and Commerce Committees. Facebook CEO and founder will be questioned about Facebook's Cambridge Analytica scandal, how the platform manages users' data policies, and election integrity as well.
Well, in the top story to track today, after 9 years of leadership at one of the country's top banks, Shikha Sharma, the managing director and CEO of Axis Bank, has asked the bank's board to shorten her tenure till the 31st of December, which is less than 8 months from now. Now, the Axis Bank board had earlier extended her term for 3 years till June 2021. Her decision comes a week after the Reserve Bank had asked Axis Bank board to reconsider the tenure extension. In fact, we here at CNBC TV18 spoke to experts on what they're making of this development. Let's listen in.
For Shikha Sharma is an honorable exit rather than messing up the whole thing, which she has voluntarily decided to go. But I would say, again, the question of transparency remains everywhere in our country, be it ICICI, be it here, or be it any other corporate, because the real reasons of somebody's departure or appointment are not known. It is only that whatever is convenient is put in public domain. The change has happened for the first time in the history of Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank came under scrutiny of public eye and they were criticized. And in order to ward off any criticism, they said, okay, let us act somehow. So to me, the Shikha Sharma becomes the first victim of regulators' activity.
What is required is some degree of stability for an orderly succession to take place. And what this is doing is effectively ensuring that the board has sufficient time for an orderly transition from Shikha to whoever will take over from her. And in that sense, we should welcome the decision at this stage. Hopefully, the RBI will support it, because I'm sure, just given the volatility in the environment at this stage, they too will not want to kind of add to it at this moment. We have to remember that Axis is an important player in the system, and they will not want any sudden and disruptive changes in the market.
Well, let's quickly get you a handle in terms of how the Asian markets are doing at this point in time. Remember that we will be monitoring Xi Jinping's speech, which is currently taking place, and get you live updates from that. But currently, the SGX is indicating that it's just about a flattish start for us. Remember, it's been a couple of good sessions, so maybe consolidation would be the trend today. Let's also tell you what's happening in the currency space. We have the dollar, which has lost steam against a basket of major currencies that it trades against, that is the dollar index. Amid lingering trade conflict concerns, the euro was lifted after the ECB President Mario Draghi said that the slide in stock markets this year has not materially impacted Eurozone financial conditions.
All right, then, in the world of commodities, crude oil previous session on hopes that the trade dispute continue to worry investors, as soaring U.S. crude production is threatening to undermine OPEC's efforts to tighten the market and prop up prices.
From precious metals, we have gold prices which have edged up as the dollar eased, though concerns about the prospect of an escalation in the China-US trade spat has offered some support.
Well, back home on Dalal Street, the markets followed strong cues from the Asian markets to end with some gains. The Nifty and the Sensex, they closed with gains of close to around 0.5%. The mid-caps, well, they were relative underperformers in trade, but they ended with gains of around 0.2%. The banks, though, they were the big outperformers in yesterday's trading session. Anisha Jain joins us early this morning to run us through all the cues that are stacked up for us. Hey, Anisha, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Well, yes, as you mentioned, yesterday we did recover from the morning lows, but overall it was a range-bound session of trade wherein the Nifty was trading in a narrow range of around 40 to 50 points. As you mentioned, it was the financials and the FMCG space that really lifted the markets. However, IT stocks were coming a tad bit under pressure. The Bank Nifty recovered almost 200 points from the day's low, and the mid-caps also performed in line. But if you look at the FII, DI figures, they are also not very enthusing if you look at it, because the FII sold around 1,300 crores in the cash markets yesterday, while the DIIs bought just around 360 crores. Even if you're looking at the global cues, they are not very enthusing, because remember, the US markets was trading well. The Dow was up around 440 points at one point of time, and then the news came that US President Donald Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen's office has been raided by FBI, and that is when in the last hour of trade, the US markets lost steam. The Dow closing just 40 points higher, and the S&P and Nasdaq as well, that were up around 2 percentage point at one point of time, ended with just 0.3 to 0.5% gains. Of course, we're keeping an eye out on the trade war, comments also coming in. Yesterday, there was no new fresh comments coming from President Donald Trump, but for today, we have been keeping an eye out on Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech, and we are waiting by if any more word come from as far as the trade war is concerned there as well. Russia, we were talking about it earlier as well, wherein the Russian RTS index plunged around 11.4%. That after US put in the harshest sanctions against Russia, and that's the reason that index also saw a dip of 11 to 12%. If you look at the European markets, well, they also ended just a bit of tepid note, because the key indices rather ended mixed, just 0.1 or 0.2% higher on some of them. If you look at the Asian screens right now, well, they are also a tad bit mixed, because the Nikkei was trading in the red the last time I checked, while the Shanghai market and Taiwanese market were trading in the green. For SGX Nifty, it was suggesting a flattish start, as Ekta was also pointing out earlier. It looks like it is going to be a day of consolidation for our markets. For the Nifty, with the levels that we are watching out for, on the upside, the 100-day moving average of around 10,436 is something that you can watch out for. On the lower end, the yesterday's low of 10,328 is that the experts are saying is the level to keenly watch out for.
Okay, and what about stocks, Anisha?
Well, a lot of stocks actually to watch and trade. First up, it's Axis Bank, wherein remember the CEO had requested to shorten the extension of her terms to 6 months, and now board has approved and accepted that Shikha Sharma's term would be, the extension of term would be just around 6 months. Moving on to ICICI Bank, wherein Fitch says that the allegations against ICICI Bank pose reputational risk, so that stock might also come under pressure today. Moving on to Wipro, not very enthusing news there as well. One of the company's client, a telecom client, has actually filed for insolvency, and that should impact company's Q4 numbers to the tune of around 65 to 75 basis points on the net income level. So that is one space to watch out for. Moving on to the space of e-way bill, wherein we understand that the government will soon start the intrastate e-way bill facility in 5 states, so something to keep an eye out on as well. We got some exclusive statements coming out from the SpiceJet chairman as well, wherein they said that they're not considering partnership with any foreign airline to bid for Air India. Moving on to other banking sources and companies like Jyoti Structures, wherein we understand that the Committee of Creditor has voted in favor of Sharad Sanghi-led investors' resolution plan. So good news coming in for the shareholders of Jyoti Structures rather, as well as the banking stocks as well. Moving on to Supercrop Safe Limited, wherein there is a board meet on April 17, and they are looking to issue some shares and warrants to promoters. Alembic Limited, wherein the buyback details are out, they are looking to buy back around 1.02 crore shares at the rate of around 80 per share. Max Financial Services will be in focus because they are looking to acquire Max Life Insurance, and there is a board meet to approve fundraising plans from KKR Standard Chartered to the tune of around 5,000 crores rupees. Newland Lab will be in focus because there as well there is a board meet, and they are looking to bring in a QIP and issue around 16.75 lakh shares. Waterbase, their care rating has been improved to care A- versus care BBB that was earlier, that bit of positive there. And lastly, aluminium stocks will be in focus. There was a penalty that was put on RUSAL, which is one of the trading firms in Russia, and the prices really spiked as far as aluminium is concerned, so those stocks might be in focus as well.
Yeah, actually it's the sanctions that have been put on RUSAL, and in fact they account for nearly around 6% of the global supplies, and in terms of if you take it ex-China, then it's nearly around 13.5%. We'll tell you more about that. Let's take a quick check on the Asian markets early this morning. Remember, overnight the US markets, they came off the high point of the day, and this morning markets like the Kospi were trading with a cut-off closure around 0.5%. The SGX Nifty, by the way, early morning the first tick was in the red. That's moved into the green. But the other markets, no worries on that front. I think if you can get the intraday chart of the Nikkei as well, you'll see at one point of time that was down nearly around 0.3%. That's moved into the green. You know, we have the Hang Seng as well that's holding with a gain of closure around 100 points odd. So pretty good going. Yeah, that's the Nikkei. Good work there. In fact, it was trading in the red. It's moved into the green. So that's pretty good news. Remember, we're waiting for commentary coming in from the Chinese president. So that's going to be rather important in terms to see how exactly is this trade war going to pan out between the United States as well as with China. But moving on, coming back home, well, the investigation into the alleged nexus between ICICI Bank CEO as well as Venugopal Dut has gathered steam. Now, credit rating firm Fitch Rating has issued a warning. In its statement, Fitch has said that the allegations of a potential conflict of interest raises questions over the bank's governance and creates reputational risk. The rating agency adds that the ongoing investigation could also undermine investor confidence in the bank.
It also warns that there is a potential risk of financial penalties as well as legal action if the investigation comes up with findings against the bank. Fitch further says that it will closely monitor developments and would take appropriate rating action if risks to the bank reputation and financial profile were to rise considerably.
Well, after 9 years of leadership at one of the country's top banks, Shikha Sharma, the managing director and CEO of Axis Bank, has asked the bank's board to shorten her tenure till the 31st of December, which is less than 8 months from now. Lata is with us early this morning to run us through with more details on that. Hi, Lata. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, of course, it was a sterling career. We must remember that Shikha's career as a banker started actually in ICICI Bank, where she was actually handpicked to set up and lead ICICI Pru, the insurance company. And when the time came for Mr. Kamath to call quits, it was Chanda who was leading the retail piece, and that's why otherwise Shikha would perhaps have been even chosen to lead ICICI Bank. It was one of those rare instances when the ICICI Bank, despite the fact that she was joining the competition as CEO, actually passed a resolution at the board thanking her for her services. It's very rare in corporate annals that when a person joins the competition, you're given such a board resolution. Likewise, in Axis, she was chosen by an 8-member board. There were 9 members in the board. The 9th member was Chairman and Managing Director P.J. Naik, who was the outgoing chairman, who wanted an Axis insider. But 8 members of the board stood by Shikha. And it was an 8-1 victory that had led to Shikha being handpicked. So it was a great entry into Axis, and of course, initial years were very good for the bank. But now I think the more important point will be what has happened. There are at least 4 regulatory concerns which has led to this. One was the demonetization time when there were a couple of people who were found either taking bribes or doing something illegal, and Shikha even wrote a letter to investors saying that she's embarrassed by the conduct of 1 or 2 people and the rest of the flock is law-abiding. And then, of course, came the WhatsApp leak of the results, and then came the divergence in NPAs between what RBI thought and what the bank reported. And finally, of course, now there will be even more NPAs. But this is, I guess, everyone's problem because of the new rules. But it's quite possible that Axis will have a big proportion. They have recognized only 5.5%, so they could well go up to 9 or 8 or 9%. Therefore, this was seen coming by a lot of people. It's a whole lot of nonsense about stock options. No regulator had any problem with the stock options issue, which some people have raised. But these were the 3 concerns, especially demonetization and divergence, that has gone against. But to be fair, there are other bankers also who have been guilty of divergence, and other bankers also who have been guilty of WhatsApp leaks. So maybe others will fall in the wake of Shikha Sharma getting this note from Shikha Sharma's board, getting the note from Reserve Bank. She will definitely not be the only one. The interesting question now is what after Shikha? Clearly, there is an insider possibility. You know, Deputy Managing Director V. Srinivasan and Jairam Sridharan are potential candidates, the two senior people within the bank. It's quite possible. Even last time we heard that they went on a talent search before Shikha Sharma was reappointed. There was a talent search and potentially good candidates outside who maybe will not have a long wait to get to a big bank. For instance, Suktankar of Axis Bank, of HDFC Bank. He's, you know, Alidepuri still has about 2-3 years. I think 2020 is when he retires. So it's quite possible that candidates like this, Shyam Srinivasan or Murli Natarajan, are all potential candidates to go from small banks to big banks. But I understand that in the last time, Suktankar did not apply. So, you know, the point is the board is open. The next question will be, will Kotak get another jab at Axis Bank? But now the investors believe that why should Mr. Kotak restrict his gaze only to Axis? ICICI could also fall vacant. Chanda Kochar's term anyway ends in March of 2019. It could end earlier going by the set of events. So Mr. Kotak has many more banks to choose from. These are very, very interesting times, you'll have to say.
Yes, absolutely, Lata. Thanks very much for that. In fact, staying with this story, we spoke to experts on what they make of this development at Axis. Listen in.
There might be short-term jitters if the succession planning is not smooth, but I'm sure the bank is in good hands despite, you know, the rocky NPA status over the past year or so. No, so I think she's had a pretty stellar career within Axis Bank. It's I don't think it's right for the RBI itself to send out these letters. I think if there's fraud, certainly they should intervene, which is where they've not been intervening in so many cases of the past 2 years. Whereas in completely internal management cases, RBI is getting hyperactive, which is quite curious.
I think she has had a very good term. 9 years have been very, very good. But last 8-9 months, I'm not too sure whether she had a very wonderful period because the way she bulldozed the board, if I may use that word, in asking for another extension, which is very unusual for any board to agree 1 year in advance for a 3-year term to be given. So I find this whole narrative a little difficult to digest, that when RBI itself has questioned the 3-year term, the way the 3-year term question arises today to say that instead of 3 years, she will be serving only for 6 months. In fact, what she is saying is that board proposes, she disposes.
In terms of pure performance, it's been a poor performance compared to other private banks. Too many issues with the integrity and the reputation of the CEO is not good for any bank leadership. More important, look at the performance. ICICI Bank quotes at less than about 1.7 times book value, and net of all the subsidiaries, 1 time book value. HDFC Bank quotes at 5 times book value. Why does the board have a CEO who is running the bank on the worst basis among all private banks for the last 5 years? Is there no reason to look at competence or performance at all? Pure performance-wise, there was no rationale for either Axis Bank board or ICICI Bank to continue with the CEOs today, tomorrow, and day after.